I'm going to demonstrate how to calculate the mean and standard deviation for a probability distribution. In order to have a probability distribution, we must have a sum of all probabilities equaling 1. We add up each of these individual probabilities and the sum should equal exactly 1. Now each individual probability must be between 0 and 1 inclusive. That means it can equal 1, it can equal 0, or any number in between. A value that is negative or a value that is greater than 1, such as 1.2, would not be acceptable. Now we can begin our calculations for mean and variance and standard deviation. We start by multiplying our variable by its corresponding probability. So in this case, we will have 0 times 0.25, which equals 0. That number we can then place into our table here. The next variable of 1 times its corresponding probability, 1 times 0.5 equals 0.5. And that value can then be placed into our table. The next variable is a value of 2. That number times its corresponding probability of 0.25 will equal 0.5. That number goes into the table. The sum of those products provides us with our mean. So by adding 0, 0.5, and 0.5, we will get our average, our mean value. And in this case, it equals 1.0. Just by chance, your mean will not normally equal 1. It is just this particular example. Now we move on to the next column, which obviously by its title here has a bit more with its calculation. What we need to do is take our variable and subtract the mean, and then take that difference and square it. That's what this first portion describes. That squared difference is then multiplied by the corresponding probability. So down here, I'll start with my first variable. So we will do parentheses, 0 minus our mean squared, then times our probability, which is 0.25. When we follow order of operations, 0 minus 1 is negative 1, squared is positive 1, times 0.25 would be 0.25. That value goes up here in our table. I'll show you one more of these. So we take our variable, in this case it'll be 1, minus our mean, squared, times its corresponding probability, which is 0.5. 1 minus 1 squared is 0, times any number is still 0. And that will go here in our table. Now, just for the sake of speed, I'll tell you that when we go through that same process for the third column, for our third row, it will be 0.25. Okay, so moving on to our variance. Similar to our mean, all we now need to do is sum those values in the column. When we sum those, we get a value of 0.5, and I like to leave a few extra decimals just for the sake of demonstration. So it's 0.5. Our standard deviation would then be the square root of 0.5, which is approximately 0.707. Now typically the rule of thumb is to maintain 1 decimal point beyond the original values. So for this situation we would leave 1 decimal point beyond, but for the sake of maintaining integrity of our numbers, I will not deduct points if you maintain more decimal points. I would not go further than 2 or 3 decimal points. I hope that this has been helpful, and there will be an Excel spreadsheet attached to the document sharing for you to utilize as well.